Welcome, everybody, to our Chocolatey software product live stream for November. Only 52 days now until Christmas. I bet you're all chomping at the bit to get there sooner. In today's live stream, we're going to look at the upcoming release of Chocolatey Central Management and some exciting features that we want to kind of demo off to you. We run two live streams every month on the first and third Thursday. This live stream here is where we spotlight chocolatey products, recent releases, upcoming releases in this case as well, and important features. Our other live stream on the third Thursday of each month is the Chocolatey Community Coffee Break, where we talk to members of the Chocolatey community, discuss how you can get involved, and community updates as well. You can watch out for announcements of all of our chocolatey content by joining us on Discord, subscribing to us on YouTube, or following us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're on everything. You can find all of those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. My name is Paul Broadith, and I'm a technical engineering manager here at Chocolatey Software, and I lead the engineering team that is responsible for the products we're going to be talking about today. My co-host today is Gary Ewan Park, who'll be taking us through the demo of some of the upcoming features. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself?
I can certainly try, yes. So my name is, as Paul said, Gary Ewan Park. I am a principal software engineer here at Chocolatey, and I've been busy working on some new stuff in Chocolatey Central Management, along with the other folks on the team. So yeah, excited about showing off some of that today.
Awesome. So we recently released a 0.11.0 version of Chocolatey Central Management. Are currently working on a new version that will be released soon, which is 0.12.0. But we're excited to show off some of the new features in this upcoming release. So that's what we're going to be doing in this live stream. Before we do that, though, we have to remind you that this is an alpha version of the software. Some of the features and the other UI design that you see here today is subject to change, but we're quite confident we'll be shipping the features that we're going to demo here today for you. So with that said, Gary, do you want to show off some of these awesome features?
Sure. So where to get started? One of the core changes, or one of the main set of changes that that we are making in this release of Chocolatey Central Management, is all to do with deployment plans, and specifically how to go about creating deployment plans. But where I thought I would start is kind of where we are today and where we're going forward. So today, if you want to create a deployment plan, you go into the deployment plans section of Chocolatey Central Management. You have a couple of entry points there. So in the last release of Chocolatey Central Management, which was 0.11.0, we added the option to import a deployment plan. So that's still there. If you've got JSON files that you've previously exported from Chocolatey Central Management, or you have your own handcrafted JSON files, then you can absolutely use the import functionality to do that. The other way of doing it would be creating a deployment plan. And that takes you through to the edit screen. So in the edit screen, you have the option of adding a step. So you would add a step which did something. So if you're doing a basic deployment step, you would choose from either Choco install, upgrade, or uninstall, and you would decide what package you wanted to install. That's the what of a deployment. So it's what you want to do. If you are wanting to use a more advanced step where you're doing a PowerShell script, then you absolutely can do that as well. Again, that's the what of the deployment step. The where of the deployment step is what group, where do you want this deployment to be sent to? Now, in 0.11.0, we added this automatic group, which is collecting together all of the machines that are currently reporting into Chocolatey Central Management. So that's an automatic group that you have the option to do, or to use rather, and you would bring that over to the right-hand side, and then at that point, you have a deployment that you know the what and the where of where you want that deployment to be sent to. On top of that, we then, in a previous version, I don't remember which one, we added the concept of a when. So you could schedule a deployment plan to go out at some point in time. And then on top of that, and again, in a previous version of Chocolatey Central Management, I would need to look up the details. We also added the concept of a repeating deployment plan where you can set a recurring period. So every day, every week, every 2 weeks, etc. And at that scheduled time, it would happen. Now, what I've just described here is the functionality that we've got today. The outside of the concept of the all computers automatic group, if you wanted to create a deployment that was targeting another set of computers or maybe a subset of computers, what you would have to do is you would have to go to the groups page. And in the groups page, that's where you can maintain the groups of computers that you want to target within your deployment plans. So over here, I would go in here and I could say, well, this is going to be my group because I'm imaginative, and I'll just call it my group as well. So in this scenario, I've got exactly one machine on my Chocolatey Central Management environment. Obviously, you would have more than that, but I could bring over that one computer into this group and say that's me done. And then, having created that my group, I could then go back to the deployment plans, go back into this edit page, and then from there, on the step that I'm interested in, I could change that to have the my group rather than the all computers group. So what we've effectively got just now, or at least this is the terminology that I use, is we've got all the building blocks for deployment plans. We have the building blocks of the what we want to ship. So we've got control over the whether it's a basic step, whether it's an advanced step. We have the where, which is we don't have the ability to create groups and manage those groups as we need to, and we have the when, so we can control it through the schedule and the recurring deployment plans. But although we have all those building blocks, the current process that you need to go through in order to construct a deployment plan can be a little tedious in the sense that you have to manage the groups, you have to first create the groups to then come over to deployment plans, to add the deployment plan, to add the groups to the deployment plan steps, etc., etc. So the main focus of this release is trying to streamline that process by allowing the creation of a deployment plan from different contextual areas within the Chocolatey Central Management interface. So, for example, if I were to go to the groups pane over here and having created my group, there's now a new action menu item, which is just create new deployment plan. So what does that do? So if I go ahead and click that, it's going to, behind the scenes, it's going to do a bit of work for me, and it's going to take me directly to the deployment plan edit screen, having already done some stuff for me. So in the case of this context where we're contextualized on the group that I've selected, it doesn't know the what that I want to do, but it does know the where because it's already added the my group into that deployment step that it's just created. So that saved me a little bit of work. So what I do need to do is come in here and say, well, what's the what that I want to do in this deployment step? So again, I could just say Choco install, and I hit save. Now you'll notice that there was a red X or a red exclamation mark there. The reason that was there is because prior to me in putting the Choco install Bob there, this was an incomplete or an ineligible deployment step because it didn't have all the information that it was needed. So there's a visual indication there that that step isn't completed, and it does need to be completed before you'll be able to run that deployment plan. So that, from a contextual point of view, saves a couple of clicks. So it saved me the need to first create the deployment plan, add a step, add an association with the group, etc. So in my head, at least, it streamlined some of that process. And there's now, from this context, I can just immediately go into a deployment plan and create a step and have that step created for me, and then I can move that deployment plan down the draft ready started, active, etc., as you normally would. So having done that, we then went another stage further. So what we're looking at here now is at the computer level. So at the context of a computer, I may want to create a deployment plan at that level as well. So for this computer, there's now action menu items where there's a couple of things to do. The couple of things there being create a new deployment plan, which is essentially a draft deployment plan in the context of that computer, or a more populated deployment plan where it's going to upgrade all the outdated software on that computer. So this one goes a little bit further than the previous deployment plan that I showed. So where we'll start is with the create new deployment plan, because when we created a deployment plan from a group, the group already existed. But when we create this new deployment plan, a few more things is going to happen in the background, because it's going to create a group for me with this one computer already added to it. It's going to create a deployment step that associates with that group that's just been created in the background, and it's going to give me a blank deployment step ready to populate the what. So if I go ahead and click create new deployment plan, so behind the scenes, as I said, we've now got a new group that was created for me, which has been marked as temporary group. We're hoping that that's going to provide enough of a visual clue that this is a temporary group that was created solely for the purposes of that, providing that context. So that group has already been associated. And then at this point, I've got a deployment step that I can again fill in with the information that I want to do. So again, that red indicator here is indicating that the deployment step is not complete. And once I fill this in, that red exclamation mark is going to go away. And now I'm at a point where, again, from a pure context point of view, I knew I wanted to do something with that computer, but I didn't have to do some of the groundwork in getting to that point where it was ready to have a deployment plan that was active. So if we go one step further again, if I drill down into this Chocolatey server, I have got a number of outdated packages on this machine. So what we thought would be useful would be that for this computer, why can't we just have a new deployment plan created automatically that already includes steps for updating all of these pieces of software? So we'll see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of software. So let's just go back to the computers tab, and I'm going to click the action menu that is upgrade outdated software. So if I click that, so again, the same thing's going to happen. If the group needs to be created, where the group is just that one computer, it will create it. If that group already exists, then we will just reuse that group. So if I go ahead and click the upgrade outdated software, I'm now going to get a fully populated deployment plan with the steps for all of those pieces of software. But in that context, it already knew the what and the where. So there was no need for it to bring up the modal box that was the edit deployment step, because it's already populated the steps that need to be created. Now, I mentioned that there were 7 pieces of outdated software, but there's actually only 6 pieces of software here. The reason for that is that one of the outdated pieces of software is a Chocolatey product. Now, we don't recommend that you include Chocolatey products within what is essentially an upgrade all for a computer. So we have not included that Chocolatey product within this deployment plan that was created. But what it has done behind the scenes is it's done all of that work that I spoke about having to create for yourselves. It's filled in the what, the Choco upgrade, that package, and it's created a group that matches the computer that I'm targeting. And it's going to reuse that group on each of these steps. So you might ask, well, why didn't we just create one step that does all of those things? Because we could create an advanced deployment script that includes all of those things. But from a visual clue, or from a visual point of view, as we're going through the deployment plan when it is active, we felt it was better to be able to see each deployment step happening and seeing it progressing, as opposed to following a log file. So you see the step going into active and then going to success, and then the next one being picked up. So that is that. And then the other thing to show from that point of view is that I was driving both of those things from the action menu item for the computer object. But if I go into the computer details tab, or the computer details page, then I have the same options from up here. So on the computer details, I can say draft deployment plan, which is that empty deployment step, ready to be populated with the what for this computer, or I can do the same upgrade outdated software as well. So there was a comment in the chat from Stevie, and I think I saw Paul put it up on the screen, but we'll maybe just discuss that quickly. Stevie said someone's going to ask, can you let me select more than one computer? I think I'm right in saying that when I got on when I got on a call the other day with Paul, and I was walking through the demonstration that I was going to be giving, I think he said exactly the same thing. So it's obviously a common ask. It's not something that we're going to be including within this release, this upcoming release. However, it did raise a couple of feature requests that we spoke about, Paul, with regard to being able to do other things at the same time, with the ability to select multiple computers. But that's not going to be included within the 0.12.0 release of Chocolatey Central Management. Okay, so that is deployment plans at the computer level. But if we turn that on its head and say, well, why, if we can create deployment plans from the group context and from the computer context, can I also create a deployment plan from the software context? And the answer to that is yes. So from the context of a piece of software, I've now got these options, which are upgrade and uninstall. So for that piece of software, I can choose to upgrade and uninstall because it knows that it's marked as outdated. But if a piece of software is not marked as outdated, then it doesn't have the upgrade option because there is no upgrade available, but it does still have the uninstall option. So what is this deployment plan in this context going to do? Well, what it's going to do is it's going to, behind the scenes, create a group for all of the computers that currently contain that bit of software. And that's the where. For that piece of software, I want to be able to uninstall or upgrade it in the context of all of the computers that it's currently installed on. So in this stripped down version of Chocolatey Central Management, where I've got exactly one computer, each of those groups is going to have one computer in it. But you could imagine that these pieces of software might be installed on different machines. So therefore, it's going to create a group for each one of those so that it can uninstall or upgrade where it needs to. So if I just choose the Jenkins CI package here, I'm going to do the upgrade option. So at this point, there's a warning, similar to what there was before, and it's going to mention that, I don't think I mentioned this before, but let's bring it up here. So this warning is essentially saying there are a couple of reasons where a computer can't or shouldn't be added to a group that's going to be part of a deployment plan. So if a computer has opted out of doing central management deployments, then there's no point including it within a group for a deployment plan because it would never get picked up by that computer. or if a computer has when a computer was checking into Chocolatey Central Management, it has exceeded the available license count, that computer isn't eligible for being included within a deployment plan. So there's reasons where a computer will not be added to a group. So even though you might expect that this deployment plan would have 50 computers in it, it might be the case that only 47 of them got added. But that's the potential reason for them not being included, is that they're not eligible to be included. So rather than create an ineligible deployment plan, we just won't include those computers as we're going through it. So if I go ahead and click yes here, what this is going to do, again, behind the scenes, it's created a group, it's associated that group with a deployment step, it's created the deployment plan and added the step to it. And if we drill down into this, we can see that we've got the what. So we've got Choco Upgrade Jenkins. We've got the where, which is a newly created group specifically for that package. So this group will contain all of the computers that have the Jenkins CI version 2.4.0.1.3 package version installed on it. And at that point, this deployment plan is ready to move to ready, and then ultimately move to the active state as well. And then to finish that off, to show it in action, if we go ahead, I don't know why you would ever want to do this, but let's just click uninstall on the Chocolatey package. That actually might not work. So let's not do that one. I haven't tested that, and because this is alpha software, I suspect that actually wouldn't create a deployment plan, or if it did, it would have an empty group, because the Chocolatey package is one of the packages that we don't automatically include within certain deployment plans. So rather than do that one, and because we're live, I'm going to just click the uninstall on the Nexus repository. So what this will do, it will create my deployment step with the Choco uninstall command chosen this time round. And if we say select target groups, we've got a new group that was specifically targeted the computers that had the Nexus repository contained within it. So that is there. And there were some comments flooding in regarding the comment that I just made. So I'll just read those. So Kim's saying that it would show an error dialog. So maybe I should show that, but we'll come back to that. And Stevie's saying, just to clear it up, I'm sure someone is thinking of it. The temporary group is cleaned up. We'll come back to that in a second, Stevie. But yes, you're right. So the context that we were driving from there was the software context, and I was showing you the in action from the action menu item on a specific piece of software. But if I drill down into the software details page, then again we've got the same options from the software details page. So we can upgrade the software, or we can uninstall the software at that context as well. So that's very similar to the additional context that we provided from the computer details page. So the one thing that's different from the top level software page is that up here, we do have an additional option, which is to upgrade outdated software. So what's the context in this scenario? When we did the upgrade from here, it was to upgrade that specific piece of software on all of the computers that it was installed on. But in this context, this is to upgrade all software on all computers that software is installed on. So this one is a much bigger deployment plan. So again, take note of what we've got here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of software that are marked as outdated. But if I click that upgrade outdated software, we get the same warning regarding whether a computer is eligible to be included or not, and the warning about Chocolatey products not being included. But if I go ahead and hit yes, then this is going to create me a much bigger deployment plan. And this deployment plan consists of 6 steps, because one of those was to update a Chocolatey package, which we're not going to do as part of an automated or an automatic deployment plan being created. But what we've got here is we've now had a target group being created that is specific to the package. So you'll see that our number of temporary groups is growing now, because at this point, it's had to create a group, a temporary group, for each package, because each package might have a different set of computers it's associated with. But what I'm hoping we've showed here is that all of that information has been figured out and it's been collected together because we've added those building blocks in previous versions of Chocolatey Central Management. We're now in a position where we can take all of those building blocks and put them together to allow us to create these deployment plans automatically without the need for you to come in here and manage those groups individually, or to create them, to preemptively create those groups, to then create the deployment plans and add the steps and add the groups into those deployment steps. We can do that from the context of where we are. So to answer some of the questions that I know that people might be asking, so let's start with the first one there from Stevie. So what Stevie's asking is the temporary group. The temporary group is cleaned up after the deployment plan completes. So at the minute, you're right. So the way that this alpha version is working is that the temporary groups are currently visible within the groups page. The intention going forward is that these temporary groups are a technical detail. They are part of the way that we are constructing the deployment plans. These temporary groups are not something that is ultimately going to be visible to the end user. We don't want them to be visible. So at the end of a deployment, or rather when a deployment plan succeeds, we will be tidying up those temporary groups so that they're no longer in play. And from an end user perspective, the creation of the deployment plan should be completely transparent. You shouldn't ever need to want to care about these temporary groups. Just having the knowledge that the deployment plan and the step within that deployment plan has a temporary group. But aside from that, the management of that group is done by the deployment plan creation that we're doing behind the scenes. So we shouldn't need to worry about them. I'm just reading through some of the other comments that I'm seeing in the chat just now as well. So excited to see this feature. Yes, absolutely. Ryan's pointing out that this stems from an issue that he raised a while back. And yes, it's been something that has. But again, I keep going back to the fact that this, in the earlier versions of CCM, it was all about putting those building blocks. That's what I've referred to them as for a while. We've put all of those building blocks in play so that we can start to provide this type of functionality. So yes, I'm excited to see it finally coming through, and I'm excited to get this release shipped so that folks can start playing with it. Just reading through some more comments here as well.
Kim mentioned about the dialog box for Chocolatey products. So if you try and select them, previously he said there was been an error, but he said there's an error dialog is not meant to be viewed on a single software, but instead if there are no outdated software when creating such a deployment. So it might not be quite as straightforward as was previously mentioned.
I know there's a couple of edge cases there. I actually went through some of those this morning. But essentially, what we need to remember is that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to facilitate the creation of a deployment plan with its steps for something that will be actionable. So we're not going to create, or we're going to attempt not to create a deployment plan that has ineligible computers in it, because that doesn't help anyone. Because at that point, you won't be able to start that deployment plan because there's ineligible computers in it. So we're taking the stance that if we need to remove or not include computers within that group, we'll do that. If it makes sense to exclude certain pieces of software, like the automatic upgrading of the Chocolatey products, we're not going to allow that to happen because we feel that would be better handled as a separate scope of work as part of your internal maintenance schedules, etc. Updating of a standalone package, bit of software, yes, absolutely, we'll create a deployment plan for that. But the core Chocolatey products, we won't include those, and the ineligible computers for various reasons, we won't include them either.
I believe there's a template, Gary, for upgrading the Chocolatey products. So maybe we'll get time to talk about that at the end.
Yes, I was going to come to that depending on what time we had left.
Yes.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
So yes, it's worth mentioning that in terms of what we recommend, we've got some documentation that says if you're updating Chocolatey products through Chocolatey Central Management deployment plans, then this is how you should do it. But now we've went a step further and we've got an example repository. Repository is poor choice of word because it's such an overloaded term. There is a repository behind it, but we have a documentation page now that shows various examples of what you can do through a deployment plan, and you can just import it as well into Chocolatey Central Management. So were there any additional questions or comments on that, even from you, Paul, having seen this for now second time? Anything you want to bring up?
There's a couple of little changes that have been made since the last time I've seen it. For example, deployment plans now on the left-hand side as opposed to deployments. But there's just little things that have changed. But no, I think this is, as you said, this is because we've had those building blocks, because we've taken the time to set all of this up, that these things are coming out. And as we had that meeting, I think it was yesterday, and one of the things I had said was people are going to want to select multiple computers or multiple software and do things with them. We've added that into the backlog as well. So even we're having ideas as this functionality gets richer and richer. So yeah, I've got no comments on what you said other than I'm excited to see this go out.
Okay. So if there are any questions or comments, feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll get to them. But what I was going to go to next is what we kind of touched on. So if we go to that's maybe not the best for coming across on the screen. Let's just switch over to the light mode. If I drill down here into the Chocolatey Central Management section and go into the usage and then in the examples section, what we've got here is documentation on how you can import a deployment plan into Chocolatey Central Management. So I said before that as of today, the two entry points for creating a deployment plan are either importing or creating a brand new one from scratch. So this is documentation that shows how you can do that. And I guess I should show the flip side of that. So on any given deployment plan, I have the export option. So if I were to export this draft plan, then what I get is a JSON file that can be imported again into the system. But in addition to documenting how you can import a deployment plan, it also provides, if I scroll down in the bottom here, it talks about some example deployment plans. So if I want to install or upgrade a package, here's an example JSON file that does just that. So these are all the kind of the lower level properties of a deployment plan. So what is the repeat period? That's the schedule. What is the plan order? That's where the deployment step fits within the overall deployment plan. So a lot of these things you get when you do the export, but the one that you're interested in filling out is what you want it to do. So it's an upgrade Firefox. That's what you want it to do. So you can manage these internally within your own environment to make that deployment plan do what you want it to do. So similarly, if you want to install multiple packages, then you can have multiple steps. So this is a more complete deployment step where it's got both deploying of Cloudflare and the Firefox and VS Code and etc. You can just build up the deployment plan from there. If you want to or need to pass in package parameters, to a deployment plan step, then you can absolutely do that by using I'm getting my terminology right, of an advanced deployment step where you're taking direct control over all of the parameters that you're passing in rather than using the basic step. So again, you can do that through a JSON file and then import that into the system. If you want to add a schedule to your deployment plan, this is how you can do it. But the one that Paul mentioned is if you want to upgrade a Chocolatey for Business package, then we've got examples within the JSON for doing just that. So what we're going to do is if I go ahead and actually on this, so I was going ahead and copy that, but I think just thinking about this out loud, a download button would be good here, so I could just get the JSON, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to run over and create that file and put it into a file that I can upload. But if I do this, and Stevie's saying he tried, that's maybe a question that we need to pass over to another team member to get that. So I'm going to click save on the. Again, I'm just off screen here, but I'm going to save this file to somewhere where I can upload it again. Deployment plan.json. Click save. So now that I've got that JSON file locally, I can walk over to my Chocolatey Central Management instance. I can click import. I can choose a file, and I can do that from my downloads, which is there. And in here, it's going to tell me that it's going to look at that JSON file, and it's going to do a little bit of visual inspection of it, and it's going to provide some details about that JSON file. So it knows that these steps are privileged steps. So if I don't have the necessary permissions within this Chocolatey Central Management instance, then the importation of this plan will not work. But if I go ahead and click import here, I'll get taken to that deployment plan edit page, and in here it's got the fully populated step with all of the recommendations in terms of how you can upgrade the Chocolatey for Business products as part of a Chocolatey Central Management deployment. So what we're building up in this particular piece of documentation are examples of deployment plans that you may want to use within your organization. But again, internally, you can maintain your own set of files that you can then reuse as part of ongoing deployment plans when you come to create them. So hopefully that makes sense. If there are any additional comments or questions on that, Paul, I'm happy to field them.
No, I think there's just some sympathy for Stevie in the chat there that he couldn't get the download link to, or the JSON to download. So there's just a pity party going on in there at the moment. Ryan has asked, is there a GitHub repo on that page with all the examples?
I believe there is, yes. So what Ryan's referring to there, I'm not logged into GitHub on this one, but if I were to go to just the Chocolatey organization, I believe, then I believe it's in here, isn't it? Yes. So the documentation that includes the JSON files at the bottom here, they are driven from the deployments that you can see within this GitHub repository. So these are the raw JSON files with some documentation or additional documentation about what it's doing, how it's doing it, etc. So yes, Ryan is absolutely correct that there is a GitHub repository that is backing the documentation that is up on the website.
I think there's a link from the documentation page as well, pointing to that repository. That's what Stevie has said. So you should be able to find it on that page. So there we go. There.
So yes, we have several example deployment plans shown below. You can check them on the Chocolatey Central Management Deployment Examples repository on GitHub. So yes, there is a link from there too. Yes. Perfect.
Awesome.
I think that's all I had to talk about, Paul, if I'm honest. And so unless there were, I'm just trying to think if there was any other things that we're adding into this release that I could talk about. So maybe I'll go and read some bits, and then I'll decide if there's anything else that needs to be shown. So over to you to
Will I
field
sing a
questions.
song or tell a
Yes,
joke? Knock
you
knock.
absolutely should do that.
No, I won't do that. I won't do that. It's
Oh,
just
I thought
if
of
you
something.
thought
I
that's
thought of
cool. I
something.
don't have to think of anything.
Well, we've added some more additional KPIs onto the front page here. So previously, in previous versions of Chocolatey Central Management, there was only 4 KPIs here, which were the ones about installed and outdated packages. So what we've included is some additional KPIs for the total number of draft or ready deployment plans, and then the total number of active deployment plans. So at any point in time, you can come in here and you can get a feel for, is there a build-up of draft or ready deployment plans that need to be moved into ready and ultimately actioned, or what is the number of in-flight deployment plans currently on the system? So those are 2 KPIs that have been added within this release. Let's have a quick read through. I haven't checked this one out myself, but I will mention it. Let me just see if I can find it. We've made some changes to this time zone selection for choosing your time zone. So previously, we thought that the way that you'd find your time zone could be a bit confusing. So we've changed the way that this selection or this drop down list is populated. So it's now showing the UTC offset as well as the, I want to say IATA, but I might get that wrong. The kind of standard format name for the time zone as well. So for you and me, Paul, we would be down here looking for London. So I can't see it for looking at the minute, but it would be in here. There. So
I don't
UTC
think it's
0.
IATA. That's the International Air Transport Association.
I can't remember what the
So
acronym is. IANA. Thanks, Corey. I knew it
IATA.
was something.
Oh yeah.
I knew it was something like that. I knew it was something like that. So we're using so it's what Corey said. So R1, for example, is Dublin, Edinburgh, Lisbon, and London, which is when you're looking for things, it's just become easier to find something when we're using the same formatting and look and feel as other systems. So that's what we've made a change there. And action buttons on tables. No, don't need to mention that. We have made some. We're getting to kind of the UI changes now. But for example, we did make some changes to this export. So previously, we would have had 2 separate buttons: one for export to PDF and one for export to Excel. We've consolidated that into now a single action with where do you want to export to. So there's 2 options now within this submenu, and we've flowed that through into the new buttons. So because at some point in time, what you can upgrade with a deployment plan is likely to be extended. So we've used that same one here, and you'll see that same functionality on the deployment plan edit page. So again, export to JSON, etc. So we're using that sort of styling now for grouping of operations rather than having lots of buttons along the top. So that, let me just have a quick look to see what else. Because like I said, we're normally when we do this kind of talk or this kind of product spotlight, I've got a set of release notes to go through as we're going through. This is obviously an alpha release, so I don't quite have that yet. So I'm just working through from some of our internal issue management.
There's been quite a lot of consistency changes as well, the naming of things, consistent messaging, consistent buttons, things that you might not notice in first look, but it helps to bring the UI together and keep it in a consistent way that the end user will be more familiar with as they get used to it. And buttons are not over here on one page and over there on another. We've tried to do it the colors, the menu drop downs as well. As you said, consolidate that, export to PDF and export to Excel button under a kind of a main menu, a top level menu. All of that, things like deployment plans, deployment steps, and consistently naming things as well to make it
Yes.
much clearer about what we're doing. There's been a lot of work going into that most people will just not notice, because it is just, yeah, it's things that don't come to your eye, but but we've done a lot of work there as well.
Yes. So I'm just there's lots of other issues, but it's not really anything that we're surfacing. Some of the stuff is back end changes, so there's no point in talking through those.
We can't. We've got 14 minutes, Gary. It's not like we're stuck for stuff that we've shown, so we can finish a few minutes early.
Yeah, I mean, one important one that I will point out, because it was one of my bones of contention. We've correctly cased the word Excel, right? So if anyone noticed, we used to say export to lowercase EXL, and that's been fixed. And what I will say is I was solely responsible for making that change. It was a PR that went in, it got reviewed, and it was a one character change, and I was very happy with it. So credit to me, we have fixed that.
Who noticed it though?
It's one of those, like, I think I have noticed it in the past, but it obviously didn't annoy me enough. And it wasn't until I saw it again and I'm like, now you know what we need to fix in this release is that XL. So
We
I
were
did.
going to just do a release just for that.
It was a bug fix
Um,
release. It was going to be
yeah,
0.11.2
0.11.1.
or whatever
We've
it was. Yeah,
capitalized Excel. Yeah,
but no, I fixed it. So just saying, I did that.
and that's why you're here, Gary. That
That's
is
right.
why you are the principal.
I get all the
Software
hard
engineer.
jobs. I did that
Yes.
one. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Something I was going to bring up that was mentioned in the chat. So we talked a little bit about the GitHub repository for the example deployment plan templates. And Stevie's mentioned in the chat, I'm just going to pop it on the screen there. If anybody has any interesting deployment plans that you've come up with, perhaps you're using your organization or something you've been thinking about, please submit a pull request to the repository there. It's on the screen, and we'll be able to review that and bring it in if it's something that would benefit other people. And as he also says here as well, that if we'll get some more information around contributing those templates in the future. So there'll be this is a very new repository. I think it's only been open for a little while. And it's certainly only got its first commits recently. There's only 4 commits, as you see there. So it's something we're building up on. So we'll have more information about contributing there, but don't let that stop you contributing to any deployment plan templates that, any deployment plans that you perhaps use, because we can certainly anonymize them if you've not done that. We can anonymize some of that information and make it more generic as well, like taking out the times and various things like that, and bring them in as templates for the community to use. That would be great. Okay. So I think we've shown everything we can here today. And just to caveat what I'd said at the beginning, this is alpha software. Gary's already said that as well during the stream. So there are things in here that are subject to change. We're hoping to ship all of this. The UI itself as well. There may be some things in there that we tweak and change a little bit. But by and large, the core of what you've seen today should be in the upcoming release of Chocolatey Central Management 0.12.0, and that'll be released soon. We not going to commit to dates, but it'll be soon, and you'll be able to get your hands on that if you're a Chocolatey for Business customer. So, Gary, have you got anything you want to just bring up we haven't said so far, we've maybe missed out on before we finish?
Other than to kind of reiterate that this has been this sort of functionality or this sort of ability is something that we've internally spoken about since Chocolatey Central Management was a very beta product when it was first shipping it. It's something that we always wanted to work towards. So no, I'm really happy that it's coming to fruition. I mean, we've gone through a couple of iterations now. We're at what 11.0 of Chocolatey Central Management. Some of that has been again putting in the building blocks for all of these things coming together. So no, I'm really excited to have this finally becoming available, and I'm hopeful that people are going to like it because it's something that I think it makes it's a bit of a game changer for how you can make use of Chocolatey Central Management. So hoping that folks are going to enjoy it and hoping to get some good feedback on it once we ship it in the next release.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. I've popped the link to that repository on the screen there as well, if anybody wants to look at adding any deployment plans to that. But yeah, just to echo what Gary said, the team are really excited about shipping this release and really excited about working on it in order for us to get you the features that we know that people have asked for and that we see the potential as well in these features going out to you in the product. So please, when it comes out, please use them. Let us know how they work for you, and we can get that feedback and iterate on that for future releases. So that's us really come to the end of the stream today. We're only 8 minutes early. We generally do an hour thereabouts, but we're a few minutes early. That's fine. So my thanks to Gary, first of all, for being my co-host today. Gary, really appreciate it. You come on almost every week. Every stream. So I really appreciate you taking us through the demos and taking us through those new features as well. Thanks to you for watching us today. Please follow us on Twitch and subscribe with a bell on YouTube, and you'll get notifications when we stream. Join us on Discord and follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Facebook. I will continue doing that, X. You can find all those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. Our next live stream is the community coffee break, and that's on the 16th of November at 5 p.m. UTC. And our final live stream for the year will be on Thursday, the 14th of December, also at 5 p.m. UTC, where we'll be looking at a roundup of 2023. So we hope to see you all there. Take care and bye-bye.
Bye.